Welcome to the California-Nevada chat of Friday, April 14th. My name is Len Dumas, Executive Director for the Northern California Section PGA, and on behalf of President Eric Lippert and our colleagues, Executive Director, CEO Nikki Gatch, and President Eric Lohman of the Southern California PGA, thank you for the continued support of our chats and our ability to just have some great people with us and keep us abreast of what's happening in our great industry. So last Sunday culminated quite a week. Most of the news was from Augusta National. We watched the incredible play of the women's amateur and champion Rose Zhang, the drive, chip, and putt finals on Sunday, which was just great, pretty much wall-to-wall coverage to see our champions from around the country. And of course, the crowning of Jon Rahm as the 2023 Masters champion. So now we look forward to the PGA Professional Championship coming up at Twin Warriors and Santa Ana Golf Clubs in New Mexico. They start April 30 to May 3rd, and we wish the best of luck to all players, and certainly the 20 that will represent the PGA of America in Rochester at Oak Hill in a few more weeks. But a special boost for our District 11 players that were well represented from the Northern California section, Southern California section, and of course, Aloha. Our guests today are Mike Kelly, the Executive Director for the Southern California Golf Association, Josh Loyo, CEO and founder of Fit Motion Lab Corporation, and the original Craig Kessler, Director of Public Affairs for the Southern California Golf Association. And Craig is to a large extent the voice of the California Alliance for Golf, and we're very grateful for that. But first, a welcome from our Northern California President, Eric Lippert. Eric?
Len, thank you very much. Welcome, everybody. And again, not to sound repetitive, but also want to extend a thanks to our panelists, Mike Kelly, Josh Loyo, and Craig for being on. They've always Craig's always got some amazing information, and we look forward to what Mike and Josh are going to share. I was fortunate enough, as you mentioned, to be at the ANWA, the Women's Amateur Finals at Augusta, as well as watching the drive, chip, and putt. And to your point, Len, I mean, it was some of the drive, chip, and putt was some of the most exciting when you talk about some junior events and just what was going on. They finished with putting, and so we sat there on 18 and watched the putting for a few hours. And I mean, there was kids making clutch putts on that 18th green, and you just can vision them being there, that following Sunday watching Jon Rahm. And what's interesting, I think, is now we're at a point with the drive, chip, and putt and what it's done, that when you look at the ANWA, there's these women playing that are past champions of the drive, chip, and putt. So some of them were out there spectating and watching, as I guess as Augusta calls it, patrons, right? Fans for the USGA, spectators for the PGA, and patrons for Augusta. So always get the terminology right, but to see them now competing on Saturday on that final round, and then they're interested in watching the kids where they were, themselves a few years back. So golf is in a great place. I'm excited for golf, and particularly women's golf at the moment. Obviously, the U.S. Women's Open is coming here to Pebble Beach in a couple months, and so we're really have a keen eye to that. But I think watching the women and their skills and the way that they played at Augusta was just incredible, and I'm excited for the game of golf. But with that, again, I just want to thank everybody for being on the panel. Have a great day, have a great meeting, and thank you for letting me on for a few minutes, Len.
Yeah, thank you, Eric. Thank you very much. And now to our colleague, Executive Director, CEO of the Southern California PGA, Nikki Gatch. Nikki?
Thanks, Lynn. Welcome, everybody. Eric, so well said. Was at Augusta myself, kind of a last minute trip. I know Craig was as well. Unfortunately, not soon enough to catch the DCP and the ANWA, but always pinch myself watching that. Never in a million years would I have imagined watching the best women in the game compete at Augusta National. So it's always really special for me, and thank you for your kind words and support of women's golf. We can't wait to come up to your place and watch the Open. So we've got some great speakers lined up, and Josh and Mike, and can't wait for you all to meet them. And let's get started, Lynn. Thank you.
Okay, Nikki, and thank you. And our first guest is the new Executive Director for the Southern California Golf Association, Mike Kelly. Mike served as the Chief Executive Officer of Golf Ontario, Canada, and brings to the SCGA more than 20 years of experience in the golf industry. Mike is a PGA of Canada member and joined Golf Ontario in 2006 and served in a variety of roles before his appointment to CEO in 2015. During his tenure, he grew and retained membership primarily through public golf and led the transformation of the association's regional and field operations, resulting in 100 new member clubs. His many accomplishments include developing the Golf in Schools program and launching the Ontario Disabilities and Indigenous Championships. He also created the World Juniors Golf Championship held annually in Ontario. So Mike, first thing, welcome. Welcome to the States and welcome to California, and more specifically, welcome to Southern California, and congratulations on your naming as the Executive Director for the Southern California Golf Association.
Thanks, Len, and thanks for having me today. I think it's so cool that you're having these chats between sections of the PGA. And as you said, I'm a really proud member of the PGA myself, and I've been a Class A member for, I guess it'd be almost 15 years now, which is hard to believe. But I'm also been a board member of the PGA Zone, we call it in Ontario, for 6 or 7 years. So I've worked at pretty much every job at the club level, from back shop all the way up to the golf shop. And then, as Len said, I went over to Golf Ontario back in 2006. So it's golf is pretty much, been my entire career, everything I know and everything I love. And it's, I am so pumped to be here in Southern California. I got to tell you though, because, there's a couple things Nikki Gatch promised me, as we were going through this. One was sun. And I have not seen the sun, at least not very often. So I'm hoping that's going to change, like really, really soon, because, the snow's melting in Toronto. So, they're going to have sun. So it's, coming to Southern California is, I'm sure I will see plenty of sun over time. And the other thing she promised me was, just a really easy, smooth commute to work. And it is not, that hasn't happened either. So it's LA traffic is something to behold. And to be honest with you, I actually haven't even found a place to permanently live yet. So I've got to sort that out. My family actually is still in Toronto. So I've got my wife, Kathleen. She works actually with in the school system with children that have autism, and both my kids, who are daughters in 7th grade and my son's in 9th grade. So they're still in Toronto, and they will be coming down here at the end of June. So I got between now and then to find a place to call our new home. But everybody is really, really excited about coming down and being part of this really, really awesome place. I've come here a few times. Once I came here when I was going between 7th and 8th grade, and it's part of this article I did interview recently for 4 Golf magazine, and just kind of welcomed me into the role, and I actually did this long trip back when I was a kid, so it's kind of cool. And we went to Universal Studios, which is right across the street from sitting right now. So that's kind of a cool full circle moment. But you know what? It's been a great start to being here. I've been here since early March, and blessed with the opportunity to work with Kevin Heaney in his last kind of 30 days before he retired and went to the Masters and doing all the fun stuff that you do when you retire, and play more golf and certainly more than you would in the golf business. But Kevin is a friend, and I'm very grateful to have had spent some time with him. And like I told him, I know where he lives, so I know where to find him when I need him. And I'm sure, and I know Nikki feels the same way about Tom, and I've had a few conversations with Tom as well, and his legacy is pretty amazing. But I mean, I can, I wanted to give you a little bit of background about myself a little bit, but you kind of covered it, Len. So, I certainly want to spend some time in terms of, some of the priorities and what's important to me. But any specific place I can start for you?
Yeah, I think so, Mike, and first to comment absolutely with Kevin and Tom, that the people we deal with and the people that share with us and help us grow are just incredible. And
Yeah.
then just an observation, but when there are 7 lanes in each direction on a freeway, that's a clue, okay? All right, so yeah, first let's talk, Mike, about the first 30 days. You're in the largest amateur association in the country, and as we have in our industry, it's pretty much a fire hose. There's the onboarding period is the first 10 minutes. So as you've had a chance to look at the SCGA in Southern California and in California in general, Mike, how'd you pick out your starting points?
Well,
What to
my
tackle
starting
first?
points are, yeah, I think, we've, my starting point is really easy. It's really in this building here. We've got 50 plus staff. We have a foundation that does amazing work. But I'm coming from Ontario and spending my entire golf career in one place. So, and coming to a new place where, I'm gradually meeting, more and more people in the golf business. But that's my focus, is to be as active as I can be. I've already spent some time with some folks in Sacramento and Craig, and watching, Craig do his thing, from an advocacy perspective in Sacramento, along with everybody else from CAG, was, very cool to be a part of and watch. And I had some experience in trying to open golf in Ontario in the second wave of COVID, when we were the only place in the world where golf was not open. So that was fun. But I'm spending time with our staff, and I'll get to maybe in a little bit just how we kicked off that relationship with my new staff team, and just the incredible people that are in this building, and also with our board. And spent a couple of few hours yesterday with golf outing with our executive committee, and again, just trying to build relationships and get their feedback and input, and I'll be doing that, for the first 60 days, Len, and moving forward and being active. Again, I'm a PGA member, so I'm in the process of moving my membership from the PGA of Canada to the Southern California section, which is hopefully going to be smooth, or at least smoother than getting my social security number, because that was a nightmare. But I think, a lot of this just comes down to, I think we all know in the golf business how important relationships are. And I think, I want to be as supportive, and add as much value, wherever, I or the SCGA can help continue to grow the game, and support those that, serve the game at the grassroots level, at the club level every day. It's something I've always said, is that, golf is not played in our office. It's not golf, it's not played here. We do have a simulator though, which is really cool. We have a simulator, and that was a nice perk. But we're here to support our facilities, our members, and that absolutely, there's not much we don't do that doesn't include a PGA member, whether it's programming or championships. It's such an incredibly important relationship for the SCGA, and I know how strong that relationship is today. And I'm really excited to spend more time with Nikki and help make that better.
Mm-hmm. And Mike, to that point about the relationships, how important they are, particularly in a state as large as California, with so much going on in so many different cultures, if you will, around the state. Thank you for coming up for Capitol Day, which we had, just a couple of weeks ago. So Mike, your impressions on that, as we met with our Congress people, our assembly people, our staff members, our senators, about, that relationship, taking the message to them and getting their feedback and being inclusive. Did you find that to be a valuable experience?
I sure did. I mean, again, to see, Craig, work the room like he does, but, the work that you all are doing is first class. Again, my experience is something very similar. We are golf group of the same stakeholders, and it's so important that, that you're playing offense on any issues. And I think that was the biggest learning from me from COVID was, we just can't keep playing whack-a-mole. everything to, every time some issue comes up, you just keep trying to hammer it down. Where, I'd say you need to have a network of people you can lean on when you have issues that affect the golf business, and everybody in it. Certainly something like COVID. But, it was really neat to see, and really positive just to see the response from the different members of the state that we met with, and how positively they look at golf, and how they look at each and every one of you. Have obviously more of a substantial relationship that I do, but the one thing that I've known, because I've listened to Craig and others at conferences like the IAGA conference, where Craig has spoken many times about the work that they're doing, and I just, my takeaway is that it is an incredibly cohesive group. We have a great leaders, Tony, who helps drive that agenda forward, has relationships, but I think that we are set up for success, mainly because of the efforts of so many people to this point, and gives us a platform to run on as a collective golf business, to help ensure that golf is always positioned right, to make sure that golf is accessible to my kids, your kids, and their kids. So it's I was all good and very impressed.
Thank you, Mike. Nikki? Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Lynn. I have a comment and then a question for you, Mike. Thanks for all the words you said about the relationship that our two organizations have had for many, many years. And, really that foundation was fostered by Kevin and Tom. Certainly before them, but when the two of them became executive directors, which was about the same time, I know that was a top priority for them, and a focus, and it's just been great. And as you probably are realizing, and some of us already have, that's not always the case across the country. I don't understand why, but we'll continue to take the lead on that and set a great example. So I'm so looking forward to continuing to work with you and even grow that collaboration and that relationship, even further, like we've talked about. So great things to come. So looking forward to that. I'd like, if you could, just take a few minutes to share with everyone, what you did this past Tuesday, and sort of talk about the new frontier, if you would. Thanks.
Yeah, I'd love to. So and there will be video to support this very, very soon. And Craig Kessler, by the way, folks, don't ever get into a hula hooping competition with this guy, because he is an elite hula hoop performer, right, Craig? It was an awesome day. So listen, in 5 years from now, the Olympic Games will be back in LA in 2028. And the opening ceremonies, in part, will be hosted at the LA Memorial Coliseum. And so, if I know most of you don't know much about me, but I do like to do things in a big way. Meaningful moments are really important to me, and obviously I've got a new staff, and supporting them as best I can. And like anything in COVID, it's been a challenge. People in terms of connecting with one another, and really trying to bring people together in a meaningful way that that is going to help from a collaboration perspective. And so we started with, what is the most iconic venue in LA that would that help some of those goals, and again, with the Olympics being there, and I took the approach of seeing if we could somehow find our way onto that field. And thankfully, the fine folks at the Coliseum were amenable to this vision, and we brought our 50+ staff on Tuesday to the Coliseum. And it was remarkable because many of them, believe it or not, hadn't met each other before. With new staff coming on, and it being still a remote work situation. So it was amazing for them to connect with one another. But we kind of gathered just outside the stadium, and then we did the walk. So the walk down the tunnel out to the field. And we're talking about like the legends in music, presidents, and some of the greatest sports teams that have played in LA. The Dodgers, for the first few years that played here. I mean, it is unbelievable who has walked through that tunnel. So I thought it was really neat that we would make that walk through the tunnel, and really cool to see so many of the staff with their phones out, capturing the moment as we were walking down there. We had the SCGA logo on all of the video boards in the stadium. And they played an awesome video because it is their centennial celebration of the Coliseum this year. And so they played a great video of all the history to really make sure everybody understands, including me, just what has happened in that stadium. And we were standing on home plate where the Dodgers would have played, and Sandy Koufax, and it's just some great history there. And then probably the coolest part is they lit the flame for us. So they lit the flame, kind of a cool moment, just this new frontier. But the new frontier piece came from JFK's speech, his 1960 speech at the Coliseum. And I use that as a way to frame, where we've been and where we need to go to continue to advance the sport. And what I love about the new frontier is if you listen to JFK's words, it's just as much about the past as it is about the future. And as Nikki said, we are so grateful for legendary professionals like Tom, like Kevin, and so many others who helped build this platform that we, me and Nikki and others have today to run on and advance the game and advance the organization. And so I've used this new frontier to kind of frame, a bit of a pathway or a map on how we're going to go from where we are today to try to form some of the really think big initiatives to move the game forward over the next 5 years. And so the way I kind of put it to staff was, when the Olympic Games start in 2028 on this field where we're standing right now, what would we want to say we've done? And so thinking a little bit bigger, funny thing is I actually thought the speech that JFK gave was the man on the moon. So I had all kinds of stuff planned for like, what would that mean? But this new frontier stuff was really, really good, and had some fun team building and walked them through this new pathway and how we're going to move through it together. Because they're amazing people, both at the SCPGA and the SCGA and in other organizations. And you can't do anything without the people. You just can't. And I want to be there to support them and help them be better leaders in the future. And if I can add some value to that, I certainly want to. And it's so it was an amazing day, and we got lots of pictures, lots of video. Fortunately, unfortunately, they had me mic'd up for most of the day. But like I said off the top, Nikki, Craig doing hula hooping was maybe the highlight of the day, and he did a great job. But I think the team really, really enjoyed it. And hopefully that kicks us off the right way.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks for doing that for your team. I know I've heard from quite a few that was a monumental moment with the SCGA.
Mhm.
I cannot wait to see the video or photos, but video would be preferred of Mr. Kessler over here on the hula hoop. But thanks, Mike. Appreciate you joining us. You and I both have some very big shoes to fill. And I'm just thrilled that you and I are taking this journey at the same time together. So look forward to working with you for many, many years.
Yeah, no, I'll just finish by just saying just how, I got to know Nikki a little bit through the process, or a lot through the process of me coming down here, and just how lucky the SCPG is to have her leading and following Tom. And, I can't wait to spend more time with Tom too, but just you guys are so blessed down here with these leaders, and I'm grateful to be a part of it. And thank you for including me.
Thanks, Mike.
Great, Mike, thank you. And for everything that you're doing, again, welcome to our part of the earth and the Southern California Golf Association. Such great work ahead, and thank you for coming up to participate in our California Alliance for Golf Tests. And as Nikki said, everybody said, we've got a lot of great work ahead of us, and we're grateful to be involved. So our next guest, Josh Loyo. Josh is the CEO and founder Fit Motion Lab, and I'm going to turn this over to Nikki. Nikki?
Okay, thanks, Len. Josh, thanks for joining us. Josh has been a great friend, not only a personal friend, but a friend of the Southern California PGA for many years. So just a little background on Josh. He did his undergrad study at UC Riverside. In 2012, he received his PTA license. 2013, he reverted to his love for golf and he became TPI certified. And that's when he started his journey in the golf performance training arena. In 2023, so earlier this year, he founded Fit Motion Lab. He works with many athletes of all skill levels and all sports, but certainly focuses on golf. And that includes some of the players at the top of their game, the top, a top level. So Josh works with LPGA and PGA Tour professionals like Lizette Salas, who is, I think, played on 5 or maybe 6, I lost track, on Solheim Cup teams. Sahith Thigala, who is an alumni of our junior tour, as is Lizette, and just completed his first Masters, where he had a phenomenal final round and finished in the top 10. We'll talk a little bit more about that. And also the #1 women's amateur in the world and the ANWA champion this year, Rose Zhang. So we will jump to that. But Josh, thanks for joining us. And I think if you can just start by, talking a little bit about what you do, and let's focus on those 3, on Lizette and Sahith and Rose, and how you work with them. I'd also be very curious as to how you work with their PGA coaches. So Sahith works with Rick Hunter, Lizette works with Jim Gormley, Rose with George Pinnell. I know you have great relationships, and you all are truly a team. So if you can kind of walk us through that, and then we'll dive into Augusta.
For sure. Absolutely. Well, thank you for having me again, Nikki. This is awesome to be part of this. I've been a big part of the SCPGA for a long time. I've known Nikki for a long time now, and she's, Nikki and I first met through Lizette, actually, as Lizette usually stays at their house for what the LPGA event that's down in their area. And, I've gone to Nikki's house, and, I set up my treatment table there and work on Lizette, and we just have a good time. And Nikki's always been very, very gracious to allow me into their home and let me do my thing with Lizette. So thank you for all that, Nikki. And it's been a blessing to be part of the SCPGA, and I'm happy to be here and kind of share a little bit of what I do, and the experiences I've had with all these different PGA coaches. All 3 of those coaches are very different from each other, and in terms of their personalities. Jim Gormley, I've known Jim for a long time. George Pinnell, I've known for forever as well. And I have a funny story about him and how him and I kind of connected together. And Rick Hunter as well, who all these guys are just legends of the PGA. And it's honestly a blessing that they trust me with their athletes to kind of get them to that next level. So, with George, for example, I'll start with that story here first. So George, as we know, George is a little bit more, he's an old school guy, a little bit more stubborn. So when I first started doing what I do back in 2013, I would reach out to a lot of the PGA coaches and kind of let them know who I was, what I was doing, what my background is in sports science and physical therapy. And so I was emailing coaches and inviting them in to take them through evaluations and just kind of show them how I can enhance their athletes and what they do with them, and how I can help them basically get them in right positions, things like that. So George replied back to me. I sent out this long, lengthy email, inviting him in, and his response back to me was no thanks. And so I was like, okay, fine, that's okay. So we moved on. I started working with one of his students, which he didn't know at the time, but she's also an SCPGA kid and ended up going up to Carnegie to play for them. So working with her over time, George was noticing some changes in distance. Her swing was more stable, positions were better at impact. And George's like, what's going on? Like, who are you? How are you? What's changed? And she was like, oh, I'm going to see Josh. And he was like, Josh, who's that? That name sounds familiar. And so he ended up coming into the studio to watch one of her sessions, and he apologized to me. Actually, it was kind of funny. And we've become good friends since then. And obviously, he sent Rose over to me, who we've had great success with, and I've worked with Rose since she was 12 years old now, I think. So a long time. I've worked with Lizette for almost over 5 years now. Sahith, I worked with him since his freshman years at Pepperdine. So it's been a journey, with these players and kind of seeing where they were to where we are now. It's obviously it's different. Every player moves differently, and it's all starts from the screening process and kind of seeing where their impairments are, how they move, what their feet structure look like, everything. The feet are roots to the ground. So if they don't have good connection to the floor, um, it can, force them to not be able to load properly into the hips and rotate around a stable platform. So yeah, I mean, every player is different. Lizette was very different from, and how we've worked with the coaches. Jim, for example, for Lizette was big time, like more sitting into that right hip, um, feeling that engagement into the floor for her. Sawhith, he's more of a slide kind of guy. So his problem is he gets more to the outside the leg of his foot. So getting him to like hunker down to that right hip as well and be able to load and rotate from there is more his trigger for his swing. And Rose, the goat of goats, I mean, just won the ANWA championship. So proud of her. But it's I think we're all still like on cloud nine from that, to be honest. She's, overall, like since she was 12, I've seen her develop over time. And, Rose, her primary issue at that time was more of a stability issue. Her balance and her swing was a little bit off. So getting her a little bit more balanced, more aware and postural awareness, at that age is important. And then over time, we've worked generally on some speed training, get her a little bit faster as she's developed through the years. And then here we are now. So now she's a very fit person. She takes her fitness very seriously. Actually, just right before this, I just finished a FaceTime session with her at Stanford before she heads off to Pac-12. So very dedicated players. All three of them have been. It's been an honor to be part of their teams. And to be able to work with the PGA instructors, and just we communicate quite frequently. I would say on a weekly basis, we're talking about their swings and what they're working on, and how we can work on those things in the gym as well. And so that's kind of what my job entails.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, fitness has become such an important part of your golf game, really at every level, but especially at the top level. But what I love about you is not only do you work with these superstars, but as you've said, you worked with them before they were superstars, right?
Yeah.
And I know you work with a lot of our junior tour players, and they see, they look up to Rose and Lizette and Sahith, and they see all these names, and kids are focusing more on this, and it's so important, and I know you have such a great understanding of how, as they're growing and their bodies are developing, and you're doing it in a safe way for them as well. So that's great. Well, let's jump to Augusta.
Oh man.
It was you had a big week for two of your
Yeah.
careers. It was so cool to run into you and Rick and walk a couple holes as we watched Sahith.
Yeah.
But let's start with Rose. If you want to take us through, she was dominating, and then she struggled a little
Yeah.
bit on Saturday.
Yeah, it was.
I know you shared with me a little bit. I think that rain delay helped her.
I think
maybe
so.
talk
Yeah.
about that a little bit.
Yeah, sure. So I got out there. It's, gosh, I think my legs are still recovering from walking Augusta for like 11 days straight. As all of you know, that course is just brutally hilly, and the weather we had out there was not ideal. Let's just say that, not ideal. So I got out there on Friday, met Rose for a little bit in the morning, or as soon as I got there, and did a little bit of work with her to prep her for that final round. So just a little bit of more like mobility things, getting her on a table, and just making sure her body's good for that final round. So cut to Saturday. Saturday we kind of knew there was going to be some weather, and it held true. The front nine was kind of tough. It was tough for everybody out there. I mean, the wind was blowing 25, 30 with some gusts up to 40 even. And it was when that happens, and I think it was a northeast wind at that time, which from what I heard, when that wind comes in, there's some ugly stuff coming in. So it started, they blew the horn around, I think she was on eighth hole. She just hit her tee shot in the fairway. But before that, she was kind of struggling. She was kind of uncharacteristic for Rose, just not hitting fairways, in the trees, left, right off the tee, which is, I don't think I've ever seen before. She's usually just automatic striper up the middle, and just her irons are phenomenal. Her putting, everything is just super sound for her. So eighth hole, blow the horn. Thank God. We go inside, and she I think she figured it. She kind of like just had a little mental reset. I talked to her, I said, Rose, you're fine, don't worry. Like, everyone's kind of struggling right now. It's not just you. She's like, thank God. I know. I felt like it was just me out here that was just tanking it. But no, everyone was struggling out there at that time. So we're kind of wondering why they blew the horn in the first place, because it took a while before that rain actually came in. It was about an hour later, I think, maybe 45 minutes or so. And then all of a sudden, a huge crack of lightning, and we're just hanging out there, and we just kind of relaxed a little bit. It's just, we didn't really talk too much golf, just kind of get her back in a good mindset, get some food in her, and just relaxed. I just didn't want to talk about anything golf related at that time. So once we started getting closer to restart time, she mentioned something about her grip, and I agreed with her. I was like, yep, that's likely the case. Makes sense. And she went back and hit some shots on the once we were allowed to go back out and practice again, and hit some drives, and lo and behold, just Rose was back. Rose is back. So back nine, she played pretty steady until hole 15. And she decided to throw us for a little loop there. And with a 2-shot lead, it's not something that I would have done at that moment. But you get in those situations, and your mind kind of just tricks you a little bit. So she had, from what I heard, she had a 218 cover into the wind, and it was a little swirly at the time. So I think maybe wind switch might have played a little bit of a factor in that as well. But she decided to go for it, and her cover usually is 225 when she stripes it with her 3-wood, and into the winds, knocked it down, never had a chance, straight in the water. Hit a decent shot over the hole, had a chance for her to make par. Kind of sent that putt a little bit, and had a 7-footer comebacker for a bogey. And I think that was a huge moment to be able to make that putt.
Yeah, that was.
And kind of settle back in again. Jenny played great, and I know Josh Brewer really well from the Georgia coach. And afterwards, I congratulated him and talked to him a little bit. So Jenny played great. They played great. She birdied 9, or no, sorry, it's birdied 17, Jenny, and we're at a playoff. So at this time, I am losing my mind, because I don't think I've been more stressed. I've gone to a lot of tournaments. I've watched my players play, and even when they're in contention, I usually am pretty calm. But this time, I just know how bad Rose wanted this event in particular to kind of just complete that slam, for amateur events. And this was big for her. This was really, really big for her, and big for her confidence, and big for her future and the transition that she's going to be potentially going through here. So she goes to the playoff, 18, I'm sitting in the middle of the fairway, and I couldn't even get up that hill at that point. There was a lot of people, and B, I was about to have, I was about to have a heart attack, let's just say. And so I hear the roar, I hear like from Jenny missing her putt. Oh my gosh. So Rose has a chance. I think she had a 6-footer, 5-footer, somewhere like that, to save par, and makes it. Thank goodness. Okay. So we go to 10. I kind of had a little feeling at this point, like, okay, I think we got this now. Like, the further that playoff went along, the more it plays into Rose's cards. just with her experience and her game. They both hit great drives up the middle. And Jenny's a long hitter, actually. She hits it quite far for her size. But Rose hits it on the green, as I think it was like a 30-footer maybe downhill. But she's on the green. And I think that put a lot more pressure on Jenny to have to step up. And I think she just hit one bad shot. Really, that's all the difference was. Pulls it. At that point, I kind of knew. I was like, all right, I think we're good. And there we go. We're ANWA champions. So
Yeah.
just so proud of her. She played her heart out. I mean, she left everything out there on that course and showed why she's number one in the world and why she's been number one in the world for, what is it, 134, 136 weeks or something like that now.
Pretty
Incredible.
amazing.
Incredible.
Yeah, pretty amazing. I mean, she's done it all. What we're most proud of selfishly is that she started in our lowest level of our junior tour at the JDT,
I
and
know, isn't that funny?
go from JDT to number one in the world is pretty special. She's done it all. We wish her the best with Pac-12s and certainly NCAAs and
Yeah.
whatever comes next.
Yeah,
For her will be phenomenal.
she's a special kid. Like she's not one that we're gonna see for a while, like something of this talent and this level, and just the humility as well. She's such
Yeah.
a humble kid, and that's what makes her great. I think that's what's special about her, is just she doesn't act like she's the best in the world. She acts like she's a schlub out there. And that's what's funny, and like I joke around with her. I'm like, yeah, Rose, like, she's like, oh my God, I'm so bad. I'm like, yeah, you're terrible, dude. Like, you're so bad.
Yeah.
So we just have fun with it. And I think that's what's important as well, is just, keeping it light, keeping it fun for her, not putting expectations or extra pressure on her to perform at these tournaments. Just let her do her thing. Her game speaks loud, so she's just a great person to work with.
Well, great. Well, we appreciate you sharing that story, and I know it was just a phenomenal week. Obviously kept off with a great performance from Sahith, especially on Sunday, and especially with the chip in on 16.
Yeah,
just
how
sky's the
special was-
limit
how
for
special
him
was
as
that?
well. Another one of our junior tour alum that we're just so excited for, and just not only a great golfer, but a great person and wonderful family. And
Oh
we
gosh,
just
those
couldn't
guys,
be-
they
couldn't
basically,
be happier for Sahith and his family.
yeah, they basically, I'm family to them now too. Which is awesome. They're just such good people. He's got such a good network of family. I mean, they roll deep to events.
They do.
And they're fun. Oh my gosh, they're so fun. But Saha too, he's just a great kid. And him coming through SCPGA as well, and just watching him grow. I've worked with him since his freshman year at Pepperdine. He originally came to me with some low back pain, actually, and that's what we were originally working on, is just kind of getting his back and core more stable, just so he can play a little bit more injury free at that time.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, he had another little issue during college with his wrist, and his TFCC ligaments wasn't holding up quite well. So that sidelined him for a little bit.
He actually worked for us while he was sidelined.
Oh, did he?
That summer, he worked junior golf events.
Oh, that's right. He did tell me that. Yeah,
He couldn't play.
that's so cool. No,
Yeah,
he's
such a great guy, and not only the accolades in junior golf and collegiate golf. I think he won everything his last year in college. And SCGA amateur champion. I can't remember the year.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that was.
But yeah. So we're excited. I know we gotta jump to Craig, but Josh, thanks so much for all you do. We appreciate the relationship and the partnership. We appreciate everything that you do for our juniors, and the partnership that you have with their PGA coaches, and we just look forward to working with you for many, many years.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. Yeah. Thanks, Nikki, so much for having me on. I appreciate it.
Okay, we'll talk soon. Thank you.
All right, talk soon. Bye.
And with that, Lynn, are we
Josh,
ready for Mr. Kessler?
Yeah, we've got him. Just a comment. I mean, congratulations on all of that. As fans in golf, particularly, we also, when Rose's ball goes in the water, our hearts break, all of our hearts break, right? And then when he chips in on 16, we lose our minds, and we watch these great moments. And that's the beauty of the game. So congratulations to you, Josh, on all of that great work. And you guys mentioned it earlier, but many lessons many years ago was, we'll get to this side, get to that side, do this, don't do, well, they can't do it, well, they can't do it. We didn't think it was their body that was preventing them to do it, other than a lack of talent, right? And now that integration is just key to what's happening in the game and improvement. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. 100%. Yeah, I think the team collaboration, it's like for the Masters, for example, it was, we all stayed in the same house. It was great. So Rick and I talked shop the whole time about Salah's swing and, what we were seeing. It's just a huge collaboration of, of a team effort now to get these guys to that next level. So, it takes the coach, it takes the trainer, it takes the player. Everyone has to be on the same page to advance that next level. So I think it's a big part of the game, and I'm happy that these guys kind of see themselves as athletes now, and they're willing to put in the work to get to that next level.
Well, again, thank you for being with us, and congratulations.
Thank you, Len. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Okay, Nikki, you're right. It's time.
Hey.
It's time. Yeah. Where is he? Oh, he's right next to you. Okay.
There he is. He's all yours.
Secret partner. And again, ladies and gentlemen, our Director of Public Affairs for the Southern California Golf Association, for the most part, our voice of reason here in California, Craig Kessler. Craig, thanks for being with us. You've been a part since the absolute beginning. So, Craig, your thoughts on Capitol Day? Again, we descended on Sacramento. I thought we had some great visits with our legislatures and senators and staff people. And then, what's happening now? There are, as Tony mentioned this morning, Tony Rice mentioned, there are bills everywhere that they need to sort through to come up with something. And one in particular, Spot Bill 1590, seems to be some, certainly maybe concern is not the right word, but at least some strong interest on our part. So Craig, take it away.
Well, as always, Len, Nikki, both PGA sections in the state of California, a little bit of Nevada too. Thanks again for having me. Before I get to two issues I'm going to talk about, the Colorado Basin, that seems to always be a primary issue. And yes, Assembly Bill 1590. I just like to talk just for a second on some themes that have come up in the earlier conversations during this broadcast today. And that's the whole idea of collaboration, and particularly the close relationship, not just in Southern California between the SCGA and the SCPGA, but also between the NCPGA and the GCSA and the whole alphabet soup of golf. It's what really makes it possible to be as successful as we are in the public policy realm, statewide and increasingly regionally and locally as well. And I think apropos to that, Nikki and I are doing this together on location from Top Golf in El Segundo, where we're going to go to a meeting immediately thereafter with the management here to discuss something that, I personally worked on some years in helping, I didn't put the deal together, but I did what I always do, and that was intervene on behalf of the interests of normative golf. So as I look out of the window to the left, we see a beautiful preserved 10-hole 3-par golf course. It used to be a 9-hole 3-par golf course. So we're going to be talking about how we're going to bring more Class A PGA teaching and programmings to the facility, and also talk about those things that the SCGA does on the developmental side, which is clubs, leagues, bringing people together at the amateur level to play golf. And of course, with the new 3-par course rating system that allows you to establish a portable handicap index at 3-par golf courses, certainly that's something we're going to discuss hopefully with Topgolf, because part of their business model or business plan, or their mantra, if you will, is that they want to work with normative golf to grow the game of golf. Well, growing the game of golf is primarily the PGA of America's job, and secondarily, amateur associations too. So I want to emphasize that because I'm often consigned to speaking about, I don't know, water issues and assembly bills and regulation and eyes can glaze over, but there's quite a bit more that goes into it, and it all goes in, and this becomes possible because we all work together. And I think many of the persons on this listening in today, because this is a PGA audience, will remember the lengths we went to and the work we put in on AB 5 and AB 2257 on independent contracting. Well, that was an issue that affected PGA golf professionals more than others. But I think and I say this all the time, and Nikki hears it, Tom hears it, Len hears it, Mike Kelly, you're going to be hearing it, you're going to be hearing it till you're sick of it. When we go to other places in the country, golf is one. There isn't just an issue for superintendents or an issue for golf professionals or an issue for amateur players and professional players. It's all about the totality of the game. Some of the issues some organizations have more expertise in some of them than others, but at the end of the day, whether it's research, whether it's pesticides, whether it's water issues, whether it's independent contracting, whether it's Class A PGA professionals at municipal facilities, is just a matter of course. It's all about what's doing right for the game. And if we all work together to do that, the game prospers and it grows, and we all share in that prosperity. So with that positive message, let me explain a little bit for those who may not be aware what's going on in the Colorado Basin. I think for those who are in Southern California, even if you're not, that's the beauty of the internet. Take a close look at the front page of the Los Angeles Times 2 days ago on Wednesday, and you will see that there are two lead headlines. One is all about floods that are already happening and are going to increasingly happen as our record snowpack melts. If it ever melts, if it ever warms up enough in this state. And the second headline is about more water cuts to come. So how do you reconcile the fact that we're dealing with flood and drought at the same time? Well, if you've lived in California as long as I have, or if you lived anywhere in the western part of the country, you understand that the two definitely go together. In fact, one of the reasons that we have floods is precisely because we have rainy seasons and dry seasons. And sometimes those dry seasons extend very, very long, and we end up in periods of time like we did the last 3 years. So here's what's going on. The 7 states of the Colorado Basin all have to recognize that a basin that was over-allocated in 1922, and the population of California and the rest of the West was a fraction of what it is today, has grown to become a rather serious, as much as 4 million acre feet per year over-allocation. Now there's something called the Law of the River, which gives California the most senior of rights to that. If you think back to 1922, California was a very significant state. Las Vegas didn't exist. And for the most part, Phoenix and Tucson may have existed, but they were cow towns. And Arizona had only been in the Union for 10 years. So they didn't have a whole lot of clout in Washington, D.C. As the years have gone by and the population has gone up and the aqueduct was built in, to cut to the canal into Arizona to help bring drinking water to Tucson and to Phoenix, and as agriculture grew in the Coachella, the Imperial Valleys and the valleys of Arizona, to the point that 90% of the fruits and vegetables that are eaten by Americans in the winter months are grown in those two areas, entirely fed by the Colorado River. And of course, if you're looking to some degree, the great golf mecca in one of California's deserts. California has a lot of deserts, but we're all thinking of the one with 120 golf courses in the Palm Desert area. And of course, much of the economy of Arizona is a seasonal economy and a tourist-based economy, and that didn't exist that many years ago. So as that's gone on, and as the Colorado Basin has continued to dry out over time, and in the last 23 years have seen the driest quarter century period in 1,500 years, despite all the rains and all the snows in California, which have nothing to do with the Colorado Basin, it's fed entirely separately. Yes, that bailed us out in Southern California for the state water project, and that's great. And we'll fill up those reservoirs, and we'll still be very, very miserly with the water we use because we don't know if we're going to have another 3 years like the previous 3 years. And you never know if we're going to get bailed out in the fourth year with record rains and snows. That's all well and good, but a substantial percentage, at least in the southern and central halves of the state, of our imports come from the Colorado River. Now, 36% go to Arizona. You combine that number with with the fact they have the most junior of rights, and I would simply suggest to our brethren in the Arizona sections and in Cactus and Pine and the GCSA, they may want to recognize that whatever problems we think we have in California, you can multiply them multifold in Arizona for a variety of reasons. So those 7 states are posturing. 6 of them anyway have decided to come up with a formula for givebacks that disproportionately affect California. California has pointed out that with the senior rights, the law of the river probably protects those, and only Congress would have to pass legislation to override that, and that's a time-consuming proposition. That if both sides stay fixed on their positions, we're going to run out. The Colorado Basin is going to dry up, and there's going to be serious issues. So what the Biden White House, through the Department of Interior and more specifically the Bureau of Reclamation, did on Tuesday was in essence give 3 options moving forward between now and the end of the year for the states to come together. And if the states don't come together, the federal government will intervene and simply dictate one of them under its emergency powers in the United States Constitution. So what they did was, one of the options is simply to share the pain equally in the 3 states that form the lower basin. Federal government has authority over that, but apparently not the 4 in the upper basin. That is Nevada, Arizona, and California. That will badly affect the state of California, in particular our agricultural sector. But when you're talking about water, that phrase "one water" is used repeatedly for a reason, because it doesn't matter. Water is fungible just like money. And when you take it from one place, it ends up having an effect in every place. The same thing goes for water. The other formula is simply to revert to the law of the river and honor the most senior of rights. That's not a tenable proposition either. That favors California. We would give up nothing based on that. However, the drinking water for Phoenix and Tucson would be cut off. That's not an acceptable result. The first is not an acceptable result. So the way I think the best way to interpret that is the federal government is indicating, particularly to Arizona and California, but to a lesser extent, Nevada as well. It behooves all of you to get together and come to some fair compromise between honoring the senior rights and recognizing that a strict adherence to that is going to put Arizona out of business, literally, and the federal government's not going to allow either result. So there's going to be a lot of activity and a lot of action on this, and I would suggest as the year goes by, you're going to see a lot of golf organizations, whether it's the National Golf Course Owners Association that's putting together a huge conference on the Colorado Basin in Las Vegas in November. I know there's one in Denver I've been invited to the month after, and I hope by the time I get there and they introduce me as someone from California, they don't throw tomatoes at me and so forth. But what you see is going on is posturing. Bottom line, wherever you are in Southern California, there's less water to play with. Now, the good news is whether it's desal, whether it's aquifer recharge, stormwater capture, this state, and particularly the southern half, has been investing taxpayer dollars and ratepayer dollars, we pay both pretty heavily, into alternative sources. But that takes time to kick in. So there's going to be a gap and there are going to be some cutbacks. And so the fact that the Sierra snowpack is going to flood the lower San Joaquin Valley and a number of other places, don't get carried away and think that all of our problems are necessarily solved. And even that problem is solved in the short run for the next couple of years, but who knows what's going to happen in the future. If there's one thing I've concluded from everything that I've read about climate and about predictions and about El Nino and La Nina and all the rest of it, is that nobody knows anything. And basically all the models we think we have, you can throw them out. We're just flying blind. And when you're flying blind, it's probably best to err on the side of conservatism. That's the Colorado River. Very briefly, AB 1590 is a piece of legislation that came late to our attention because it was a spot bill, which means on the February 17th deadline for the filing of bills for the 2023 session, when we do our scrub of 2,600 bills to see which are about golf, land use, water, and all those things. This one didn't pop up on our radar screen, but what did pop up, but ultimately when the details were filled in, they're this. It would ban, if it were successful and written into law that's been consistently amended, the use of all organic pesticides and fertilizers, that's significant, on any golf resort that is both a golf course and a hotel of 300 or more rooms. Now that's a very, you can count on almost, well, you might need the second hand, but barely, to count the number of facilities in the state that are affected. And it's easy to dismiss things when it's minor, and it's kind of curious as to why a limited amount. And we're trying to really dig into the details to see who's sponsoring it, what's behind it, what are the politics of it. I don't think we have time in this broadcast to go into all those details. So this may be more about, maybe far more about politics than about policy. However, our concern as we're watching this bill is that to the degree to which the issue is inputs on a golf course that's in a coastal zone, does it really ultimately, does it matter to the NRDC or to environmentalists or those who track, the history in Europe, in which there are a lot of places where this has become law, and golf courses are in those jurisdictions, and they're prospering. And I think that's something that environmentalists are going to point out to when we suggest it's difficult to prosper under these particular regulations. Just write that down, put that down in the back of your mind as something maybe we should get out in front of, instead of stay behind and be reactive about, maybe be proactive and ask for the time necessary to accommodate or to adjust to it. So our worry is that that could be a slippery slope towards legislation in subsequent sessions that would simply incorporate all golf courses, including something like Torrey Pines, which the way we read the bill, it would not come under it, because yes, there are massive hotels there with 1,000 rooms or more, but the hotels have a different ownership, have nothing to do with the city of San Diego or with Torrey Pines. They have a lot of cross business relationships, of course, but they're different ownership. But again, to the degree to which the issue there, you go down the block to Coronado, another municipal golf course in the coastal zone, and there are many of them. Are we looking at that? And so I think it's something that golf needs to take very seriously. I do think, based on this morning's discussion, the California Alliance for Golf will be involved in some measurable way, but I'm not sure it will certainly not be in the way that we attacked Assembly's bills 672 and 1910 in the last couple of years. It'll be a little bit more the way we've dealt with other things, including independent contracting, where we're looking for, I don't want to use, the first phrase that came to mind was soft landings, but we're looking for ways to move into what we know is going to be the future in California, whether it's off-road engines, whether it's leaf blowers, whether it's water conservation. And in this case, maybe it has to do with fewer inputs on golf course. We've already moved in that direction voluntarily. How do we indicate, rather than fighting things and waiting to be dictated to? And oftentimes when businesses are dictated to, you get 5 minutes to adjust, and that becomes a very difficult proposition. To be able to plan these things in longer term, that's sort of been the way we've handled things in California, and I think we've handled them pretty effectively. And if I do say so myself, we've gotten better results here on some of the very same issues that have affected other states, which is why it always surprises me when I travel to other states and they look at me and say, how do you cope with California? My answer is better than you do here, and that should not be the case. And maybe you can learn a few things from the way that we've handled these things going forward. a lot of fast words. In fact, in a recent magazine article about me, I was called I was called a fast talker, and so maybe this is why I get that particular reputation. So I'm going to come off my fast talking. I think everyone knows how to get in touch with me, and don't hesitate to do so. Feel free. I'm wide open. You've got my email, you've got my phone number, and all the rest of it. So feel free to do it. And Len, I'm going to sign off now, and I'll stop my fast talking, and but use it maybe to answer one of your questions if you have some, or if we have any time left on this broadcast. Nikki's really needling me now, so be quick.
Well, we want to respect that, Craig, and thank you. You know, the issues are abundant, not only federally, but certainly here in California. They're just nonstop, and each time they become more and more complex. So thank you for helping us understand it, and thank you for reminding us that we need to take action and we need to stay aware of these things. So time to wind down. Is Nikki still sitting next to you? Yep, Nikki.
Glenn, thanks. We had a great audience today. Thank you all for joining us. We had great speakers. Glad you all got a chance to meet Mike as the new leader of the SCGA, and had some really cool stories that Josh shared with us from his experience at Augusta. So thanks to everybody for joining us, and we will see you next time.
Yeah, thank you, Nikki. Eric, a couple of thoughts to close? Maybe, yep, there he is.
Yeah, no, I'll never shy away, right? As
Yep,
you've learned,
yep.
but no, just a couple closing thoughts. Again, great speakers, great information as always. You guys do a great job, so thank you for putting this together and providing us with all this information. And I just wish everybody the best, and look forward to the next one.
Right. Thank you, Eric. Tom?
Thank
Some
you.
thoughts
Great.
from the big.
It was great. Can you hear me? Thank you. Eric, good to
Yes.
see you. Take care.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. Okay, Mike, thank you. Josh, Craig, just a tremendous session this morning, and for everybody that ended, we had almost 90 people on today, so the support is very well welcomed, and believe me, we appreciate it. Finally, our good luck at District 11 between our three sections. We have 21 players in the PPC coming up in a couple of weeks at Twin Warriors and Santa Ana Golf Club. So we're rooting for you. We're cheering for you all the way to get to Oak Hill. And then, Nikki, do we have a date for next month? Maybe middle of the month again?
I think it was May 12th, Lynn.
Okay, great. Everybody, please put that on the calendar. May 12th, and if it changes, of course, we'll let you know earlier than May 11th, maybe. Okay, everybody, stay safe, keep looking out for each other, and enjoy the weekend. Thank you. Thank you, Steve.